WWE. So did not expect that. Even though Sasha Banks leaving for the WWE, pal, is not really that important to me, to be honest. There's other stuff to be put into concern about, like probably what's going to happen to Money in the Bank. If Vince McMahon's going to go awry with this, with the further information, or Sasha Banks and Naomi are going to catch the pink slip over walking out of the company. What's going to happen to the WWE Women Tag Team titles? I think we already heard there's going to be a tournament, but nobody really cares. So, in further information, Vince is giving out alleged hush money for probably inappropriately touching Dewdrop, confusing her as a man. And of course, we also have Sasha Banks being released, but further nepotism allows Naomi to still be probably on the official roster list. Now I'm checking over the official roster of SmackDown because I think this is where these women still are. And Naomi's still on the official roster page, including Sasha Banks. So I don't know where we're getting further information about Sasha Banks being released from the company if they're still on the official full roster list. So hopefully we get that panned out later in the future. Of course, there's also more further allegations involving Nick Khan having more to do with whatever the ins and outs of what WWE's going with over the company is going and their social media presence. And you can see that I guess Stephanie could have saw this coming. That's why she took a primary break over the company with further allegations or finalizing some divorce documents with Triple H because they haven't been seen together since 2019. Just to give it the power to the people. People power, you're the authority. That means we're not to blame when the show sucked because we're not the authority figures anymore. I don't think that's how it worked. Bye! What the fuck? I think I had everything to say on the matter involving the Jeff Hardy DUI situation. We already have live coverage. My little brother watched because, of course, all young and old know who Jeff Hardy is. Everybody that's been enticed into the wrestling business or has been a fan of pro wrestling can't hear a lick without hearing, I'm going to go sky high like Jeff Hardy. Like, he is, whether we like it or not, one of the more influential wrestlers to ever exist in the modern day of the business. That will never be taken away from Jeff, but Jeff is his own worst enemy. Jeff is his biggest weakness. And to see this live footage of a cop pulling up a gun when it would have been obvious that Jeff would have had his hands up, even though driving under the influence, there was no reason for force. I thought he had a taser out on his face as soon as he was pulling it out the vehicle. And my little brother was looking scared as shit, thinking that the cop was going to shoot Jeff Hardy. That's insanity. But, yeah. And I think I went over this on the Retro Raw stream over the other night, bro. If you're telling me that AEW, the DUI has nothing to do with AEW, AEW has no reason to be blamed why an employee that has an avid drug and alcohol problem and worked for multiple companies over the years, no reason to give background checks or to know if he's completely good or should get supervised by other wrestlers that know him. Like, obviously, Mark Henry, Paul White, Matt Hardy. Like, you are dismissing the fact that there's people out there that probably love this dude to death, and he's still doing this type of shit, and AEW hasn't been thinking, hey, Jeff, just for your own safety, maybe you should be supervised or we should do further drug tests before you even head over to the ring, or something might goddamn happen. Because God knows if Jeff accidentally gets hit, hits a car in the middle of that highway, it could have killed a couple people. and people are focusing on the fucking Hall of Fame. What about we focus on Jeff not suffering a life sentence? That should be the major concern. Not because he goes to the Hall of Fame. Not a fake Hall of Fame. Fake athletes. Fake characters. Just so you guys can feel good, feeling like that's what makes a good That's what makes a great wrestler. Chris Benoit isn't in the Hall of Fame, and that guy has had many great classics, but that doesn't mean that Hall of Famer means he's a good person. There's alleged rapists, murderers, sexual deviants, and abusive dickheads in WWE Hall of Fame. And you're telling me that it makes a difference that Jeff being there would actually make a difference? And the only people the only people that match that rap sheet is the combined rap sheet of the Usos. Like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm shocked that the Hall of Fame is in everybody's mindset whenever they think of Jeff Hardy. Oh, do you think after the DUI, Jeff Hardy's gonna reach a Hall of Fame? Why is that the major concern here, guys? Why is that the major concern here? We should be following, like, actual reports supporting Jeff and putting him over rehab. Because this is the guy who walked out on WWE beforehand over allegedly refusing to go over rehab and cutting off over a live event where he was possibly inebriated anyway, because who just walks out in the middle of a live event and gets released afterwards. And Tony Khan doesn't think of doing a background check, because even before getting released in the WWE, we saw what happened over on Victory Road. We saw what happened back in 04, 03. Jeff has a goddamn problem. And how these marks over the internet and how AEW is perceiving this, and even Matt Hardy. Like, I shouldn't be seeing fucking TikToks about a guy's addiction problem. If my brother was going through that, I wouldn't even be touching social media. I would already be at his house consoling him over this type of stuff. And he has such a minimum. Like, what was his bailout over jail time over his third DUI within 10 years? Wasn't that like $4,500? That's barely even that's barely even after a whole 2 semesters in community college. That cheap for something so high. I don't know how it is in Florida. I know Florida doesn't give a shit about human life, but that is awful. That is purely awful. And I do prayers for Jeff Hardy whenever I see this type of shit, because I don't know how. This could be correlated to Sonny. He might end up like Scott Hall, because sometimes you'd be seeing like, oh, there's nothing wrong with him. Then later on, he ends up doing some dumb shit, running over 2 people. And the major concern is people thinking like, so how's he going to be in the Hall of Fame like Chris Benoit? Oh my God, dude. It's fake. Get over yourselves. Being in the WWE Hall of Fame doesn't confirm that you're the greatest of all time. I'm being serious. It doesn't. Sure. It's more important than being in the Wrestling Observer's greatest of all time Wrestling Hall of Fame, but it's fake. For fake fighting, for fake characters. There's no accomplice to be done when you're in the WWE Hall of Fame. Then probably prestige to be protected over your criminal history. Jimmy Snuka, like Hulk Hogan, like Scott Hall. So you guys like need to keep a clear-cut like mindset in how this is supposed to be done. And going back over to the Sasha Banks and like how Naomi's not released him, even though she's a lesser star than Sasha Banks. Like, you think they cared about the women's division? These women are getting like pushed to the moon, given their own pay-per-view, headlining majority of shows in Randy Orton, Drew McIntyre, Roman Reigns, that has just started to give an opening segment. Acknowledge me. I'm out of here. I got my pay. That's it. Jay, you're going to be main eventing. Main event Jey Uso, everybody. I'm going to go to the car. You're still drunk, Jay. It's just, it's just a new level of privilege that we have over, and a neglection that we have in the wrestling business that I don't think will be done until somebody's purely honest. Literally, I think I have a JD from New York's tweet here. And going over like Naomi's like tweet, going over some bullshit TikTok that she probably got from some 19-year-old LGBTQ supporter. Uh, it just looked mad stupid. Being like, you gotta make sure that you let the other people down so you can to make yourself up. Like, shut up, please shut up. It's just retarded. AEW has some responsibility to bear. Booker T has claimed AEW is partly responsible for Jeff Hardy's current situation due to the pain of the death-defying dives he's done since joining the company. Do you agree? This is by Inside the Ropes, sourced up by Booker T. Shout out to the Hall of Fame podcast for Booker T. Always puts up some good points. I don't know his What Culture jobber secondary co-host, but always entertaining to learn from the five-time. I could have said it 6 times, but people don't want to count, even though he only won the world title in WWE once. Because WWE didn't build an entire story about alcoholism, the extent of accusing him of driving drunk, shoving alcohol in his face for weeks, having him take his piss test on TV, and wrestling Sheamus in a Booker T, and his opinion is absolutely fucking worthless. Wait, I'm sorry, what? So, head trauma and doing death-defying stuff is less threatening than going over Jeff Hardy's past, villainizing it, and making sure Jeff overcomes it over Sheamus bullying him over the last several months. I don't know what's worse. JD always picking over and supporting AEW's side because he's a complete mark in spite of WWE, and I've went over this many of times. Because most of these wrestling fans are legit marks, they won't intake the opinion that certain companies are in the wrong. And Booker T was absolutely right over his opinion when it came to still doing death-defying shit and not doing background checks and putting a guy that obviously has addiction problems under jeopardy and not even starting off slow. I don't know how you take a man that has several years into the business, has been around you think Booker T, with his years in the 90s, the 2000s, has no experience with coworkers that were drugged up, taking painkillers, and still doing high-risk shit in a daily or weekly basis? JD, you are such a fucking mark, bro. It should be illegal. And don't be trying to think like I just have a hate boner for this guy. I have just no respect for a guy that obviously isn't a blatant bias, because he obviously can't make his own opinions, and he's just doing this out of support for a company because he hates the other company, not because they think that the other company shouldn't be responsible for watching over a guy that has health issues, addiction problems, and still doing risky shit on a weekly basis. Guess who else did risky shit on a weekly basis that was also drugged up? Chris Benoit, and we know the end of that story. I'm not saying that Jeff is going to do something like that, but it could end up with him like Scott Hall or many other wrestlers that we know that have a drug history or an alcohol problem, and it ends up hurting other people. Or Tammy Sitch, and that bitch is going to suffer in prison. I don't give a shit about the Hall of Fame. Please do not bring up the WWE Hall of Fame when it comes to people that obviously have their own personal problems. These wrestlers are human beings. Be respectful. I'm sick and tired. Matt Hardy probably couldn't get over the ledge when it came to getting that dumbass concussion and making TikToks about his own brother's problems. So whatever JD thought would be a better counter argument than just saying that Booker T's opinion is stupid, that's just despite of Vince and just despite of a company that he obviously doesn't like because he didn't get his fat neckbeards over like Kevin Owens or some shit. It's not because he had legitimate opinions or else he would have said something back to Booker that actually made sense. And you disagree with the wrestler that's been around people that were addicts. You think Booker has no experience with people like Jeff Hardy? Like Sabu? Like guys in WCW like Benoit? That were either coked up, doing alcohol, and still doing high risk spots? Bro, that is, I don't know. JD from New York is like, that's a different breed of disappointment that I don't want to talk about. I'm being dead ass. But you know, how you guys? You can see a couple people up live watching. You can just type out your opinion over in the chatty. You are welcome to, even if I disagree with it or not. You have the right to speak your mind, and I will not time you out, even if I think it's wrong, because you have your right to speak. You're even allowed to come over to the panel. I'm not trying to stay for too long, possibly until like 4:30 or something. I got to prepare for work soon, probably. But JD from New York, bro, that was just a dumb topic. I'm going to hear more about this Vince McMahon hush money problem. Forbes reported that Sasha Banks has been given a legitimate release by Girl of Wrestling Inc. Really? This is the primary source that people have been using? Well, this isn't legitimately off the company. And it says, has the Sasha Banks from WWE drama finally come ahead? A late breaking report Wednesday night suggested. So it's just primarily rumors that Sasha Banks have been released. That's nice. That's completely nice. And Randy Orton, he suffered an injury. If you guys don't remember, back at WrestleMania Backlash, that was his last match tagging with Matt Riddle. Suffering a back injury, and he could be out for the remainder of the year. So, blessings to Randy Orton, and hopefully he feels better. He's been in the business for a long time and has touched a lot of dangerous spots before. So, it's good for a guy like him that's in a way more later age than he was years ago to, take the time, rest up, take what you can from the wrestling business. Don't let the wrestling business take shit from you. That's my opinion. Because if I were you, would just work smarter, not harder when it comes to something physical like pro wrestling. Mick Foley obviously just ignored that and just kept trying to mark out for the modern wrestlers. The WWE women's locker room when John Laurinaitis is wished well in the future endeavor. Oh, wow. So he literally just thinks that everybody in WWE backstage doesn't give a shit about their wrestlers. This is obviously coming from a Mark. Trying to think that Nick Khan. Well, I think Nick Khan has more genuine pull into the company than Stephanie and Triple H, and I feel like Nick Khan has more legitimate business mentality of how he feels like WWE should be branded and should be profiting off to more than putting the reins to Stephanie and Triple H to have a more image output on it and not really a long-term value than Nick Khan and Vince does. So I can see why Nick Khan is a bit more trustworthy when it comes to the pulls of what's going on in the company than Stephanie. And that's why I think that she left. Whoever think it's a relationship issue, I guess. If that's what you guys believe, go right ahead. I won't bet against it. I'm gonna just question whatever you guys feel like is good information. Oh my god. Booker T just has bad fucking opinions. If you guys could do me a solid, like the shit out of today's video on YouTube. YouTube has been a nightmare today. Yeah, just like the shit fucking edgelord. I did not know Florida police treated Jeff Hardy like black people. I mean, no, I mean like a fugitive, like a fugitive. That's what I meant, guys. Like a fugitive. But yeah, that's practically all I had to talk about here live. But I want to thank plethora of people, around like 5 total pulled up to even hear me speak about this. I didn't want to stay on for too long because I only had like 3 topics to talk about, and I didn't give a shit what's going on the Forbidden Door. All I heard was the Young Bucks became tag team champions, and Will Ospreay like finger banged somebody in a work rate match, with matches that nobody asked for, nobody wants to see, or everybody already did on their universe mode on 2K19 before 2K22 even pulled out. So whatever. I'm not really ecstatic for Forbidden Door. If you guys are, good for you. Hope you enjoy yourself if you got to watch it live, but I'm not, because I have way better stuff to do on what's the pay per view gonna be, the 28th. Like, I'm gonna prepare for 4th of July. I have my Brock Lesnar seasoning coming up. I'm going to get it. We're gonna taste test it, and I'm gonna review it live here on the channel and see how everybody thinks about it. I'm gonna use steaks and ribeye for it, bro. Kebabs. That shit's gonna be valid. But yeah, guys, tell me how you felt about most of the topics that we went over tonight. And that's it for me. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your night.